All right, we got to sit down and have a serious conversation because it seems like the city of Detroit has lost the ability to lose normally. As is the case with many good teams around the league, they don't lose very often, and the Detroit Lions have only lost 5 games in the last year and a half, and as a result, whenever losses do happen, the reactions just get a little bit more extreme than they normally do, and that has certainly been the case this evening. The cope online has been ridiculous. There's been so much BS coming out after this game, mainly because of what Brian Branch did after the game was over, resulting in all kinds of shenanigans that we have to talk about, but we're going to try and just sit down, have a normal conversation about what went wrong for the Lions in Kansas City on Sunday night. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Zach Payne. I make Lions content here on YouTube. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe when notifications turned on. It's a very small channel, so if you could take 5 seconds to do those 3 things, I'd really appreciate it, and it would really help the channel grow. And before we get into it, I also do need to say a big thanks. For those of you who don't know, I stream every single Lions game. I've been doing watch-alongs for each of these games. And during the stream tonight, Tom Grossi himself raided my chat and sent a whole bunch of people in my way. So there's a bunch of new people that are watching now that are new subscribers that are, well, part of the Grossi posse. So I just want to say thank you to Tom Grossi for doing that. It is an incredibly kind gesture, and I don't want to overlook that because he takes time out of his stream to raid smaller channels, and the fact that I was one of them tonight, it just means a lot to me. So welcome to all the new people in here tonight, and thank you for that. And again, if you're new, make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future Lions watch-alongs. So coming into this game against the Kansas City Chiefs, admittedly, I was not very confident. If you looked at my preview that went up a couple of days ago, I said that I didn't love the Lions' chances in this game because there were a lot of things working against them with the secondary injuries and the Chiefs coming off a loss. They're going back home. Big opportunity for a bounce back game. And it just didn't, the vibes were not great. And the Lions have not been playing their best football over the last couple of weeks. Yes, they beat the Browns. Yes, they beat the Bengals, but those were hardly clean performances. And there were a lot of things in those games that the Lions needed to clean up, and they didn't. Quite simply, they did not, and Kansas City took advantage of it all night long. And the theme of the game for the Lions was missed opportunities and costly mistakes. And that was evident on the very first drive. Literally from the jump, the Lions came out with a purpose. They ran the ball. They marched down the field, a 9.5-minute long drive. And it ends in a field goal because of a procedural penalty on 4th and goal that people are mad about. So we got to start there. So for those of you who are not aware, on 4th and goal from the half-yard line on the very first drive, the Lions ran a play where David Montgomery threw the ball to Jared Goff, who motioned out wide, and he caught the ball, he bobbled it into a defender, but managed to make the catch, runs into the end zone. Lions take a touchdown lead, and it's awesome. We get a big 9.5-minute touchdown drive to open the game, and everything is great. And then more than a minute later, it was, I think, a minute 17 seconds is what people timed it out to be, a flag is thrown. One of the latest flags I've ever seen, and after a lengthy meeting with the officials, they determined that there was an illegal shift on the Lions, illegal motion, illegal formation, whatever the actual call was, on Jared Goff, because the rule for quarterbacks is that if you're under center and you motion out, you have to get set before the ball is snapped, before the play is run, and Goff didn't do that. There's a little bit of a nuance there because when a quarterback is in shotgun, that rule does not apply, and obviously you can have a man in motion, but when a quarterback is under center and establishes himself as the quarterback, he has to get set before the snap. Goff doesn't do that on this play. Obviously, the refs throw the flag, the penalty then negates the touchdown, pushes the Lions back, and then the Lions spend the next 30 seconds arguing about it, which causes a delay of game, causing them to have 4th and goal from the 10, where they just kick a field goal. And people were very understandably upset at this, not at the actual call, because it was the right call. Goff lined up under center, and then he went in motion, didn't set his feet, and then the Lions ran the play. It is a penalty. But what people are upset about is the fact that the flag was thrown so late after the play, over a minute after the play. The Lions had lined up for the extra point, and suddenly the touchdown is off the board, and they have to kick a field goal. It was just very chaotic and not very well handled by the officials. Now, this is a bit of a weird gray area because on the one hand, you want them to get the calls right. On the other, you can't change your mind a minute and a bit later and then throw the flag retroactively. So I understand Lions fans' frustrations. Originally I was under the impression that the officials got word from New York, because I was thinking this is such an obscure rule that the officials might not have been aware of what was happening, and so the league office had to phone in and be like, hey, by the way, that was a penalty on that play that you guys missed, because it's an obscure rule. But after the game, we got the pool report, and the officials confirmed that wasn't the case. They just met for a minute plus and then decided after the fact to throw the flag. So it was entirely the officials on the field. So I understand the frustration, and I'm frustrated too. Don't get me wrong. I'm really annoyed at the fact that you can just throw a flag a minute and a bit later, well after the play, after the celebration, after the teams are lined up for the next play, which in this case was an extra point. At the end of the day, though, it was the right call, so we can only be so mad. Now, I'm not going to go through the rest of the game the way I did that first play, because there is just a lot to talk about. So I just want to start with the biggest problem in this game. The Lions could not stop anything defensively. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City offense were able to do whatever they wanted on the offensive side of the ball, especially through the air. I was not impressed by the run defense either in this one, considering how bad the Chiefs have been at moving the football on the ground. I was expecting the Chiefs to be able to throw the football very effectively in this game due to the injuries at corner, but I was not expecting it to be this bad. Quite like, I don't even have another word than bad. It was just horrible to watch. They couldn't stop anything. The Chiefs did whatever they wanted, and they marched down the field time and time again, and it was the Lions' undoing in this one. Now, one of the biggest problems in this game for the Lions was missed tackles and allowing extra yardage. There were numerous times where they would meet a back after 1 yard, 2 yards, and then he would just trudge forward for an extra 3 or 4. Unacceptable. There were multiple missed tackles. There was one Brian Branch had where he had Xavier Worthy wrapped up and he wasn't able to get him on the ground, and Worthy's able to gain another 10, 15 yards as a result. Just way too many missed opportunities. Hutchinson had a missed sack on Mahomes as well early on, where Mahomes is able to spin out and then find a wide open guy downfield. Just not good enough with the fundamentals in this one. Another thing too, the coverage. The Chiefs had way too many easy yards in this one, whether it be screens, whether it be quick throws off the line. I cannot count the amount of times that Mahomes threw the ball instantly to an open guy for at least 6, 7, 8 yards. Travis Kelce was getting wide open a couple of times. I don't know why they were playing so much man coverage when guys like Eric Hallett are in the game. It was just a disaster from the defense in this one. There were 2 plays that I was content with. One being an Aiden Hutchinson strip sack, which I was so mad that they didn't recover. And the other play was a 4th down pass breakup by Thomas Harper, who was a reserve safety that was in the game because Kirby Joseph left with an injury. Kirby Joseph being very questionable coming into this one, as was Brian Branch, ends up suiting up, then leaves the game, was walking very gingerly on the sideline, somehow came back after that again. I'm, first of all, amazed Kirby played in this game. But on that play, Thomas Harper was in the game, made a fantastic play to get off the field. That was it. 2 plays. I guess I'll throw in a third. Al-Qadim Muhammad had a sack at the end of the game. It didn't end up mattering, but held the Chiefs to 3 at the end of the game, I guess. So technically gave the Lions a chance, even though they were down 13 at that point. But he's had a nice start to the year, so good on him for that. Now, I also have to criticize Aiden Hutchinson, because even though he set a franchise record tonight with a sack in his 5th straight game, and he also had another forced fumble, he's been great at getting the ball out this season, he took a ridiculously stupid roughing the passer penalty that gave the Chiefs 15 extra yards. It was a play that was an incomplete pass, and it would have put the Chiefs in 3rd and 8 from their own 33. They were not in good field position at all, and suddenly they were at midfield after a ridiculously dumb penalty. Mahomes clearly got the ball out, and it was a bad penalty by Hutch for him to take. And so, yeah, I have to be fair on my criticism. Hutch, also, I felt he could have done better against a backup tackle in this one. He was fine, but I expect more from one of the best edge rushers in the league. So, got to give a little bit of criticism there. Offensively, the Lions were just not good enough in the high leverage moments. Again, something I talked about in the preview. The Chiefs' defense is very good. Steve Spagnuolo is one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, and the Lions were inevitably going to be in a lot of 3rd and medium, 3rd and long situations in this game, and when those plays came up, they just weren't good enough. The Lions finished 5 of 11 on 3rd downs in this one, and 0 for 2 on 4th down. One of those 4th downs, the more important one early in the game, was a drop by Amon-Ra St. Brown. Very rare drop. I'm not worried about that, but again, a player that's usually one of the Lions' best performers with a critical missed play or critical mistake in a key moment. So that's another thing I have to flag. St. Brown had a lot of catches in this game, and I'm not mad at his performance at all, but key moments like those are the plays we needed the Lions to step up, and they just didn't. And it's a shame because through 3 quarters of this game and even most of the fourth, the Chiefs got a pressure towards the end of the game. But for most of the day, the Lions' pass protection was unbelievable. On the ground, they were doing a good job of pushing the Chiefs up front. I was impressed with the offensive line for the most part. Even though Dan Skipper was starting at left tackle, it seemed like the Lions were doing a very good job. But as the game wore on, some of the pressure started to get home. Chris Jones, who's obviously a very good defensive tackle, was taking Tate Ratledge and Christian Mahogany's lunch money a little bit. He got them on a couple of reps. George Karlaftis got Dan Skipper on a couple of reps towards the end of the game. So for as good as the pass pro was in the first half, it started to wear a little bit as the game went on, and that became a big thing. Goff, again, he was fine. He was perfectly acceptable in this game, but his receivers just sometimes on those key plays just couldn't get open, and that's what happens. Like, the Chiefs are a good defense. It's not even necessarily that anyone's to blame. The third downs just weren't executed well. And it's funny because talking about the receivers, one of the guys that has gotten a lot of criticism lately was Jameson Williams. He came out and had a great game. He had 6 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. He was a lot more involved. I mean, getting him on some of these shorter concepts, these little mesh concepts, let him catch and run. He had a touchdown on a crossing route, which haven't seen that in a while. Haven't seen JMO involved in the red zone like that in a long time. So that was a great play. It's a shame. He had a good game, and if you had told me that JMO would have 6 for 66 and a touchdown, I would have thought, wow, that means the Lions were moving the ball well on offense. Sam Laporta had another 5 for 55 and an unbelievable touchdown. Just a spectacular catch in the back of the end zone as well. Nice game from Laporta. St. Brown, though, 9 catches. That's good. 45 yards. Way too few yards for that many catches. And that was really it. Like, David Montgomery had a couple checkdowns. Jameer Gibbs ends up with a reception that lost 3 yards. Well, he also got a hook and ladder that gained 3 yards, so he ends up with 1 catch for 0 yards. And speaking of Gibbs, way too imbalanced on the ground for the Lions in this one. Jameer Gibbs had 17 carries for 65 yards, which is already not great. You want Gibbs to do better on the ground, but David Montgomery only had 4. How does David Montgomery have that many fewer carries than Jameer Gibbs? And especially if he had 4 for 24, that's good. I'm surprised and a little shocked at how imbalanced the running back usage was in this game. And I could talk about individual performances the rest of the way, but at the end of the day, the Chiefs were the better team. They deserve to win. The Lions have a lot of things to clean up. I'm not worried about the Lions, honestly. I'm not worried about the Lions long term. They're going to go back to Detroit. They're going to get ready for a Monday Night Football game next week against a very good Buccaneers team, and then they're going to go into their bye week. I'm not worried, right? The Lions are a good team. They're going to be fine. However, we also have to talk about what happened after the game, which was incredibly stupid and could actually be very costly as well. Now, I don't blame anyone who missed this when the game was going on because it was after the final kneel down. It was after the game, and a lot of people at the 2-minute warning would have turned the game off when the Lions failed that last 4th down because the Chiefs were in victory formation, and that's when most people turned the game off. But after the final kneel down, Patrick Mahomes goes to shake Brian Branch's hand, and Brian Branch, in the heat of the moment, he's like, you know what? I don't want to, whatever. He's mad, fine. Doesn't shake Patrick Mahomes' hand. But the problem is he walks past Patrick Mahomes, goes up to Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, I have no idea what Juju might have said to, cause this reaction. But Brian Branch punches him in the face and starts a brawl at the end of the game. And that is something that is absolutely unacceptable. And Brian Branch is a fantastic player. I've been critical of him in the past, but he's a fantastic player. Love having him on the Lions. But man, oh man, he has had some emotional moments over the last couple of years. And this is another one that is just completely unacceptable. He's definitely going to get fined. He might get suspended. And he had to make his head coach stand up after a loss and apologize for his behavior, which honestly is the most embarrassing thing about this. Like, Dan Campbell had to stand at that podium and be like, I'm sorry to Andy Reid. I'm sorry to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sorry to Juju Smith-Schuster. This is not behavior that we condone. And Brian Branch should just have to watch Dan Campbell apologize on his behalf for the entire week and just feel the guilt and shame that goes with that, because he's going to rightfully get clowned by the entire NFL world for his actions after the game. I won't be surprised if he gets suspended. I hope he doesn't, obviously, as a Lions fan, because when Brian Branch is on the field, that helps the Lions win. And if he was not going to be there on Monday night, that would obviously hurt them. So I want him there. But man, I won't be shocked if he gets suspended for at least a game, because that was unacceptable behavior and it has no place in the sport, quite frankly. It has no place in football. It's one thing to be mad after a loss. It's another to be a complete sore loser and just display ridiculously unsportsmanlike conduct. That has no place in the game. And whatever punishment the NFL deems appropriate, I will not object in any way, and no Lions fan should either. And lastly, I will mention this because it is going to be a talking point among some of Lions Twitter, and when I say some, I mean the ones that are trying to cope with this loss in a really bad way, the refs. Now, I mentioned earlier, obviously, the frustration with the one touchdown that was called back for the Lions, but another thing that people are pointing out is the Kansas City Chiefs only had one penalty called against them in this game. It was an offside towards the end of the game with 2.5 minutes to go. That penalty was declined anyways, so the Chiefs didn't have any penalties in this game. No penalties that were enforced against them, and only one that was called. And people are taking screenshots of holding calls that they thought were missed, or just various flags that they should have been thrown throughout the game. Now, what I'll say to that, we know that the refs are not necessarily good at their jobs. We know that officials make mistakes all the time. You're allowed to be mad at the officials. You're allowed to be upset that they didn't call certain things on the Chiefs. Remember, the Chiefs won by 2 scores. A holding call here, a holding call there would not have drastically changed the outcome of this game. Maybe it would have made it a 1-score game. Who knows? But I don't like blaming the refs for being the refs. We know they're bad. We know they make mistakes. It is what it is. Like, I know that people are going to spend a lot of time over the next 48 hours after this game and be upset. That's fine. Be upset. And I understand it's easier to blame the refs than to say that the Lions were bad. It is what it is, right? Like, the Lions lost, the Chiefs won. Deal with it. So that is going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Remember again to hit that like button and subscribe with notifications turned on. And I will see you guys later in the week with some more content breaking down the upcoming matchup with the Buccaneers. And of course, I'll be streaming that game as well. So I'll check back with you guys later in the week in the next few days. Remember, the Lions are good. Don't panic. But until next time, my friends, cheers.